Well, good evening and welcome to the season finale of Hathor Hosts. Who would have thought that a year and a half down the line, we would still be here, still sitting in my living room, broadcasting once a week. Thank you all so much for making this show what it is. Thank you all for helping me out with my little wig. I'm going to take it off now because I've done the wig action. And yes, I have wig hair. What I wanted to say is if you have liked what you've seen over the last year and bit, please do hit the subscribe button. It's the best way to stay in touch with what's happening, any possible future seasons, and of course, any interviews that might be coming up as one-off specials. Who knows? Let's see what the future holds. I am going to crack on because tonight's guest has whipped everybody into a frenzy. And I really wanted to say thanks to you for everyone who's joining us from around the world, particularly people in Australia. I know it's super early for you guys, so thank you and good morning. Good day, mate. So as I was saying, yes, my guest this evening has whipped everyone into a frenzy, and rightfully so. The very first time I saw her work, I thought, who is this extraordinary actress? Talented, beautiful, intelligent, articulate. Yep, all of these words, and damn nice to boot too. She excels at playing characters with gravitas, but never ever comes across as condescending, and also playing characters that very often are faced with situations or scenarios that we generally struggle with, and somehow makes it look effortless. So please put your hands together for a massive virtual welcome to the one and only Torri Higginson. Woohoo! Welcome, Torri.
Oh my goodness. I feel like I'm the wrong guest. That was such a lovely intro. I'm like, oh, the wrong person.
Like, who is that woman?
Who is that fabulous woman? I want to meet her. She sounds awesome. It's so lovely. Oh, it's so lovely to be here, and so lovely that you invited me. And yeah, I love that your hair is just as red underneath that wig.
Yes, just as red, not quite as straight. Well, I have to say a special thank you to you because I'm sure everyone noticed this evening a slightly later start time. And I have to confess, everyone, that is 100% my fault. Not being particularly good with numbers, world time zones are a little challenging at the best of times. And for some reason, I thought Torri was on Pacific time. And thank goodness she was able to reschedule and give up her precious time. So thank you so much again for that, Torri.
Oh, my pleasure.
I'm really grateful. And I know you've had a long day of Zoom type calls. So hopefully we'll make this fun and interesting, and hopefully you'll have a great time. So kicking off, I know that you were born and raised in Burlington, Ontario. What were you like as a kid? Oh, no, not raised. Okay, born, but not raised. All right, correct me, help me.
I actually just shot a film in Hamilton, Ontario in November because I was stuck in Canada. I came up here to start this other series, and COVID, everything was pushed. So I ended up being stuck in Canada because I'd done the quarantine. And my agent found me this job to shoot in Hamilton. And it was the first time since I was 2 months old that I drove by the hospital that I was born in. I went, oh, that's where I was born.
Oh, so, wow.
Yeah, I was born there, but I never lived there. I think my parents lived there. And then then they liked the doctor. So they went back to the doctor for me to pop out, and then they moved back to Toronto.
Okay.
Slight sort of technicality, but then, yeah, I don't know Burlington very well.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks a lot, Wikipedia.
Stupid Wikipedia.
I mean, I should have known, like, if it's on Wikipedia, it's definitely not correct. So what were you like as a child?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. Probably, we moved a lot. By the time I was 15, we had lived in about 17 different cities and houses and countries. So I think I was a mix of, I just knew how to dig my heels in and get going and go, okay, where are we next? And let's find the adventure in that. But I think I was also shy because I didn't know I didn't have a safety net, right? So yeah. I think there's a mixture of adventurous and yet shy, which probably still sort of sits true now. I think I've carried that through.
And I think so often with actors, it's a really interesting dichotomy, this thing of like wanting to be the center of attention, but also actually being quite introverted and shy at the same time.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are, I mean, it's funny because there's that sort of presumption that we're all very, very extrovert and confident. Most of the actors I know are kind of
The opposite.
Yeah, you sort of have to have a thick skin and a thin skin at the same time, right? You have to have a thin skin so that you can access emotions and you can access different perspectives, but you have to have a thick skin because there's zero security or safety in our world.
Yeah,
You've got to
exactly.
be okay, people know all the time and be cool with that. So it's we kind of have to live in both worlds, I think, all the time.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
speaking of that security and that or insecurity that our profession brings, the acting bug for you didn't really hit until quite later in your life because your mum was an actress at the time, I believe, a stage actress, and I think you'd seen how hard it can be, and that kind of put you off. So, what was the thing that eventually made you go, "No, I really love acting and performing, and this is something I want to do"?
You are a good little researcher. That's interesting that you know that. Yeah. I didn't want that. I wanted security. I wanted to be an eye doctor or a lawyer. And one of my closest friends, she wanted to be an actor when we were in grade 7, and I wanted to be a lawyer. She's now a lawyer in New York, and I'm an actor. We sort of laugh about how they're kind of similar, although her hours and paycheck is better usually. But I think I didn't like I looked at my mother didn't seem happy, you know, she was always wanting. She was always in the state of wanting. And I thought I wanted a bit more control in my life. And now I'm at my age going, shit, why didn't I choose something with more control? I ended up going to theater school. I actually studied in London. And my reason to go was not to be an actor. I wanted to study under Patsy Rodenberg, and I wanted to study voice and text coaching. And I loved language. I loved Shakespeare. Patti Smith sent me towards poetry. So that sort of sent me to language and Shakespeare and that whole world. So I wanted to understand it from the other side. I didn't want to. I thought, what a great thing to do for 3 years. Go and study poetry and hang out with a bunch of people and play. And I'll figure out what I want to do when I'm doing those 3 years. So I just kind of fell into it. I didn't really choose it. I just sort of, then I came out of school and went, well, it's all I know how to do now. So I might as well try it.
Well, thank goodness for us.
Very passive, very passive.
No, but sometimes I think that's an interesting thing because passive, yes, in the sense that you didn't go, I want to be an actor, but you fell in love with language, and there's lyricism and romanticism and passion and fear, and particularly Shakespeare, and particularly being taught by someone like the legendary Patsy Rodenberg. So I mean, must have been about 18. Oh, hello, telephone.
Sorry, turn it off.
She's busy.
Sorry, I thought I'd turn them all off. I guess I did not. There we go.
Right. Please get it if you have to. We've had Rainbow Sun Franks take a call, 2 calls actually.
Rainbow.
We love Rainbow.
So
yeah, he's fab. So yeah, you must have been about 18 when you came to London to go to drama school. How was that, sort of being uprooted from home and I presume on your own at drama school?
Yeah, well, for me, because we had moved so much. I mean, by the time I was 15, I'd lived in Montreal, in Toronto, in Canada. I'd lived in Wales. We'd lived in Kuwait for a little while. We'd lived in Chicago for a year or two. We'd lived in Stratford, Ontario. So we moved so much that I think that's sort of all I knew. It's still all I know. I still only spend about 6 months in any given place before I have to go. That's just sort of my rhythm. And also my family are all Welsh. So because we moved so much, I really connected with that Welsh family. And whenever we'd go back for, summer vacations, I just, my grandparents lived in the same farmhouse for my whole growing up years. So they represented such a stability and such a sense of, and they all lived there, like we got our own family tree done a little while ago. And I think only 5 people in 300 years have left Wales. Like they're Welshies. They don't leave. Yeah. They're like,
I love it, Wales. Hello to the Wales.
Oh my gosh, I love it so much. I'm actually right now rooting for Wales, and I've got my little Euro notes happening while we're here.
Woo,
sorry.
Look at you. Pretty fun.
A little bit of football fan going on.
Come on, Wales.
So it was very, very comfortable. It was comfortable to be somewhere new, and it was comfortable to be so close to Wales. And I would go back pretty much every weekend. And my uncles and my grandparents thought I was Mad Hatter, as I'd be, talking about this arty stuff and what it feels like to, emote. And they're just looking at me like, oh, I'll go get the eggs. Go collect the eggs. Go milk a cow. Shut up, stupid girl. It was a very good balance, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And always healthy to have that. I read in an interview with you that you said it was because of your obsession with Patti Smith that you became an actress. And I was like, that's interesting. So can you elaborate a bit more on that?
Yeah, I think it was about her. I mean, it was funny because one of the first songs I heard of her singing, and the chorus is "Go Rambo." I didn't know it was a poet. I was thinking of the movie "Go Rambo." Like that's how I'm.
Go Rambo! Go
Yeah, I'm like,
Rambo!
that's so weird. This punk sort of icon is singing about Rambo. Like, what's that about? So, I just started to dig in a bit more and then went, oh, and I started reading her lyrics and started understanding her love of literature and then I just fell in love with poetry. And so it was through that, that love of language, that love of poetry. Then I had
Yeah.
the opportunity to meet Patsy Rodenberg because I was living in Stratford, Ontario. So she was there doing voice work for the Stratford, Ontario theatre company, very different from the Stratford upon Avon theatre company,
Yeah.
but inspired by. And I thought, what a great way to spend a few years. And I will continue my love of learning and falling in love with language by studying with this woman. And
Yeah.
then, so that's how she led me. That's how Patti Smith, I feel, led me to be an actor, was through giving me a purpose too. Like, as a teenager in, I guess, the 80s, right? It was a strange time because it was all
Mhm.
about, there wasn't a lot of truthiness going on, right? It was big
Yeah.
hair and shoulder pads and like,
Oh, I remember it
cocaine and
well.
dance. Like it was all this crazy. So I kind of stuck into like the punk scene. I sort of wanted something a bit more truthful, I think. And
Yeah.
her lyrics and how she was resonating with art and self and questioning all that stuff just really resonated with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have,
And
have
then
you
it
ever
was
met
kind of
her?
beautiful. I met her briefly. I was so nervous. She did her first because when I fell in love with her, she retired. She wasn't doing it. She was raising kids in Detroit with her husband. And
Yeah.
then her husband died. She started touring again. I think I was 21 at the time. And she did her first show in Toronto. So one of my oldest friends, who still is one of my dearest friends, she and I showed up. I bought her a potted sunflower. I stood by the stage door with this potted sunflower.
I
And my
love
friend had
it.
a bottle of wine, and we were just like, please, can we meet her? And we ended up meeting her for a minute, gave her the sunflower. That was it. But I was so nervous. I don't think I would be comfortable meeting her. I think I'm so, I mean, she's the one person I'm really starstruck with. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't know how to just have a conversation with her. I would just be like, like me,
Yeah.
like me.
I
Completely
know, it's
immature.
so funny, isn't it? I mean, that
Mm.
thing, I'm a bit like that with Eddie Izzard. I've loved his
Oh,
comedy for
so
years. And
nice.
one day I was coming out of a class in London and he was across the street on the phone.
Oh
And
my
I was like,
gosh.
oh my God, it's Eddie Izzard. Anyway, and I said to the girl I was with, I was like, I have to go and say hello. And then he started walking. He was having a conversation on his phone. And so I started following him. And eventually, like, what was 1 block was then 7 blocks. And I was like, God, am I stalking him now? And finally, he stopped talking. And I was like, and I just like verbally vomited all over the poor man. He sort of looked at me and was like, do you want a picture? And I went, no. Because I think I was so like embarrassed that rather than going, yes, please, I just went,
Yeah.
no, I just love you. Anyway, so
I so understand that. I so get that. He is brilliant. He came to do a
oh,
stand-up
brilliant.
show in Toronto years ago, and I was doing a play at the time, so I couldn't get because we were on at the same time, on stage at the same time. And there
Yeah.
was this one night, it was his last night, and I said and the play I was doing, it was gosh, it wasn't Three Tall Women. It was Mill and the Floss. We did an adaptation of Mill and the Floss. So I was playing this young 13-year-old girl. I was probably 30
Yeah.
years old at the time, but I had this wig that came all the way down. It was like, 18th century, 19th century. I don't remember the date right now of the play. And I just said, I just got to run. I've just got to catch his last 10 minutes. If that's all can I just leave with the wig? Let me just, so I'm like riding my bicycle through the city with this like 18th century wig. And I got there just in time to see the last 10 minutes. And he's so brilliant. And I
Yeah.
remember him on stage too. He'd only been in Toronto for 4 days. And I remember him nailing all of the politics that were going on in our city at the time. I thought, how extraordinary for him to, because he knew he did that for every single city
Yeah.
on that tour. And he's just so brilliant. His mind is so brilliant.
Oh, I know. And now, like, I mean, he taught himself, well, does he stand up in French and then German? And I think now is
He does German too
doing
now?
something like, yes,
Oh
completely
my
fluent in German now. And now I think doing Japanese or something
Oh my God.
really difficult.
Okay, now just
Anyway,
show off. Now he's
yeah,
just a show off.
exactly. I mean, you could go off someone, really.
Yeah, yeah,
And anyway,
yeah.
this isn't about Eddie, this is about you. So I was quite intrigued to see that your first credit on IMDb, anyway, is First Night. And the episode that you were in was written by none other than Brad Wright.
How did I not know that? I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So isn't that just a serendipitous, weird thing? So the next time you see him, you will have to, maybe you sort of stuck in his mind from way, way, way back then.
I love that. That's so crazy. I love that. I remember that first night. She was a very she was an ethical vampire. She had gotten
quite
tired
theatrical.
She was very, yes, that's right.
I love that. Right. Loved it. Well, I watched the episode on YouTube, so you can go and find it on YouTube.
Oh wow! I gotta drop Brad a tweet. I will tweet him. I will show.
Yeah.
You knew that. That's super cute.
What do you remember most about that? Was that your first kind of big TV job? As big as in, you know, then.
Yeah. I think it was. I can't remember exactly. I mean, I remember I was pretty lucky. I came back from college. I always have a bit of regret because I always wonder what would my career be if I'd stayed in London. And the reason I came back was, you know, a heartbreak story. That's why I came back. So I always kind of wonder, yeah, what that would be. So that year, I think I came back to Canada. I started working as a waiter, as you do. And within a year, I quit it and I was able to make a living as an actor. So I always feel very grateful for that. But there's a bunch of just little tidbit pieces. I mean, Tech War was after first night.
Yeah, it was. And I was going to say,
old broad now. It all mashes into one now.
Honey, I hear you. I'm like, somebody goes, oh, and the best bit is when people ask you when you were born. And the other day I had to give my age and literally the girl was like, sorry, how old are you? You know, she was so shocked. She's like, oh. And then she was
that's
like,
nice. That's nice if they're shocked. They don't get shocked when I tell them.
Oh no, I think she was shocked just because it was. I think she was shocked because it was so long ago, not because anything to do with me. She just couldn't conceive.
Times.
Exactly. I was like, we have to use carrier pigeons, dear. We didn't even have anything else, you know. So Tech War comes along and here you are, you're classically trained and will use your voice and boom, you're straight into like a very 90s show, but sci-fi with sci-fi royalty with William Shatner. And so how the hell was that experience? Did you have a moment of like, okay, I have to adapt?
And I was a snob, you know, I was a young person snob. I thought I knew everything. I just come out of studying Shakespeare in England. So I was like, what the fuck am I doing this crappy sci-fi with like, I didn't get it. I hadn't been a sci-fi fan. It's the thing I admit to, you know, I've had to admit and come to terms with in the convention world. I wasn't at the time. I wasn't into it. It was a job. I recognized it was a lucky break, but I didn't enjoy it. I didn't know how to be playful. I was taking myself far too seriously. And I was worried about the next step. That was the only time. I think I had ambition for about 3 years in my early career. Never had it since then. But it was right in the moment of when I discovered ambition. I was thinking like, what does this mean? What will it lead to? And at the time, sci-fi didn't have a lot of respect in the acting world, right? People didn't really look at it as a serious genre. It was a real, what's the word that they use? It was a real, not a cult thing, but it was just like such a genre. It wasn't mainstream in any way. So I fought against it. I did it. I didn't, you know, I had some lovely memories of William Shatner. He was delightful and very kind to me and treated me with great respect and was, you know, very fun. And I remember being amazed at looking at this man. We'd go out for dinner a few times and you know, people love to bitch about actors. So you'd heard negative stories about him. He was nothing but kind to me. But you would go out for dinner and you would see he couldn't even get a fork to his mouth without somebody tapping on the shoulder saying, oh my God, are you? So I thought whoever's going to bitch about him, I would be like I would be in a bad mood if that was happening. If I couldn't walk down the street with any sort of autonomy at all or any anonymity. So I had a lot of time for him. I had a lot of, I mean, I learned a lot. That was my first series. Like I learned a lot. That's the show that I learned the ropes. I learned how to pace yourself for a day. I learned about, you know, the relationship with the crew. You learned about so it was in retrospect, a huge, huge learning curve for me, but it wouldn't be until Stargate that I started to love sci-fi. It would take me another, you know, 10 years to understand the benefit of sci-fi and a gift it is, and what a gift of storytelling it is.
I think it's so interesting, this thing of like snobbery with the work. I think in England today, there is still that snobbery with, say, theatre versus musical theatre. And I'm always amazed by that, because if you sing in a musical, you have to do it, it's even harder than just acting in a play. It's much harder. You have to learn to dance, you have to sing, you have to look after your voice. It's completely different instruments. And yet with casting, there is this real snobbery still, that the minute they see music, and I sort of, when I lived in LA, because I lived in LA kind of around that time, I was there for 10 years in the early 90s, and it was so absolutely true, that like snobbery that existed with sci-fi. But look at them now. Now it's all big bucks and, like hugely popular.
It's the big thing now. It's a huge thing now. And I also changed my attitude, that I realized that if Shakespeare was around today, I always sort of throw this one out at conventions too, but I truly believe it, he'd be writing for sci-fi. I think he would, because he always he wanted to reach the biggest audience, and he wanted to talk in a way that you could talk about the biggest concepts and the most banal concepts at the same time. And to be able to, and I think he would probably choose like a soap opera or a sci-fi genre to explore those ideas. Yeah.
That's a really cool idea, actually. Wouldn't that be interesting?
Shakespeare in space. It'd be great.
Exactly. But you were very lucky. Well, not lucky, you're talented. I mean, you were able also to work on the highbrow stuff, because in 1996 you worked on the multi-Oscar winning film The English Patient. And in the run-up to this, I rewatched it, and I was like, it's such a brilliant film. And I mean, Anthony Minghella, what a brilliant director. How was that experience, and how did that role come to you?
That was, I mean, that's, another one that, you don't, I feel sort of guilty even, saying I worked on it, because I had such little to do, but I was there for so long. He actually came to Canada to audition the Canadian roles, which he didn't have to do. There was no Canadian money in it whatsoever. He just wanted the authentic Canadian accent. He wanted to honor Michael Ondaatje. He wanted to, who is the writer, the movie is based on his novel. Minghella is extraordinary. He's extraordinary. That was probably the only real full budget feature I've been a part of. So that was another learning curve, that you looked, and everybody was extraordinary. I mean, extraordinary actors, extraordinary producers. I remember having a bit of a meltdown because we were shooting in Italy, Cinecittà, just outside Rome. And it was the first time I'd seen my face. We'd go to see the dailies, and I saw my face the size of a movie screen. And I'd never seen really dailies before, and I'd never understood. I'd never seen myself act without the layers of sound, the sound effects, the music. So all of a sudden, this really raw, and you heard our sort of metal hats clonk, Juliette Binoche and my metal hats sort of clonk together, and it just felt so. I thought I was awful, and I was petrified. And I remember I ran. I shouldn't be sharing the story. I escaped the cinema that we were watching the dailies, and I went and I hid behind a tree. I thought, oh my God, I just did so badly. They must just, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So I watched all the cars go, and I went, oh, fuck, how do I get back to Rome now? So as I was coming to the tree, I'm like, what am I going to do? And then this limo comes up, and the window comes down. It's Saul Zaentz. I'm like the last person I want to see. He's like the major producer.
The money. Yeah.
Oh, so I just sit there like it was the most uncomfortable ride back to Rome. And actors in security. Oh, it's fun.
Oh, what a great story. No, I'm so pleased you shared that, because I think for people looking on the outside in, so often a life can seem so perfect, and you've been really honest with us and in previous interviews, and I dig that, because I think the more we talk about it, the more people will understand that it is a learning process. You're not the same at 20. At 50, you're not the same as what you were at 20. You have learned, hopefully by then, a trick or two and a thing or two. And I completely understand that. I mean, I still have that when I see myself on screen. I'm like, oh my God, is that what I look like? Because I don't feel that's what I look like in the mirror.
I know. That's the one. I remember my grandmother saying every time, she was like 78, and she said to me, every time I walk by the mirror, I'm surprised. I still think I'm 27. And it felt so foreign. And I remember around 40s, I started understanding it, going, oh, I see what you're talking about.
Yes, exactly.
And now I get it full on. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think actors, I mean, I think it's really, I mean, I can't help it, but to share all of my, strangeness in the world. I don't know how not to. And I also just think, as an actor, like, we're here because we want to understand human nature, and you can't understand it or explore it if you're not honest about your own, if you're not.
Absolutely.
So I kind of feel I don't have a choice but to go, okay, here's all my picadillos. Do with them what you want.
Yes, scatter, children.
Scatter. Yes. Run and be free. Please don't come back.
But again, like, you seem to have done what most actors dream about, and that is that you have been a consistently working actor. You have supported yourself. You have lived off your craft pretty much from the beginning of your career, and equally have had a very strong presence in sci-fi, and in seminal shows like Tech War, Outer Limits, Highlander, PSI, Chronicles of the Paranormal. Was that ever a conscious? I know you said that the love of sci-fi only came 10 years later, but it was never a conscious decision, just about where the work was.
It's always where the work was. I mean, I find it very funny that I'm asked in most, interviews, why did you choose this job when you're doing PR for a certain job? Why did you choose this? I'm like, are you kidding me? There's like 0.5% of our union that can choose shit. Yeah. I take what I'm offered. And I've said no to some stuff because I've either found it offensive or I didn't feel I was right for it. But on the whole, I've also said yes to a lot of things that I didn't want to do and I hoped people wouldn't see. But I needed a paycheck, or I thought, well, I want to work with that one person, but I don't think this script is good, but this is a good opportunity, or this shoots in Africa, that would be cool. So I've made choices outside of a creative belief. But I can't imagine. I mean, it's interesting at my age now because I'm really struggling with that going, I would like to have some control. And I still feel like I am always chasing the wave. I mean, as I was saying to you earlier, I've now been away from my home for almost a year. That's kind of weird. Like living like a sort of gypsy nomadic and being willing to do it and being available to do it. And there's sacrifices that come with that. And so, yeah, it's interesting. So, no, I never chose to do a sci-fi path. I said yes to what was offered. And I forget sometimes to be grateful that I have been lucky. I've made a living doing what I chose to do, even though I didn't have choice within that industry so much. So it's there's always that balance, right? You're looking for, but absolutely. You might as well be grateful for the good side instead of focus on the bad side. But there's some days you go, I want control, and other days you go, I'm so grateful.
Yeah, and it is really hard. I mean, I think there is something, we're talking about age quite a bit, but absolutely, we're a very similar age. And I think, like, one of the things I noticed recently on the set, I had this guy who was, I thought he was 12, but he was probably like 22. Not a clue, telling me what to do. And I found it really difficult because part of me was like, I want to be able to respect you because I have to, because you are the director, but you clearly don't know what the hell you're doing. You haven't got a fucking clue, And I find that very difficult now as I'm older to smile and be like, oh, okay, it's all fine. When inside I'm like, no, it's not fine. It's shit. And I don't want to do shit. But I guess
I so hear you. I so hear you. I mean, the job I'm doing right now, I'm so grateful for. I love it on many, many levels, but I have a small part. So I have to go in and I have to grapple with my ego. I have to grapple with my sense of purpose. I have to grapple with, well, sometimes don't I deserve more than this? And you're like, ooh, deserve? Where does that come from? What is that entitled thought? Have to grapple with, yes, a young director that isn't going to give me much attention and treats me like a day player because on the script that day, that's what I look like. And recognizing, oh gosh, you're treated so differently depending on what number of the cast you are. And it's a great lesson in humility that I'm not always getting A+ on. I've had a few F days, I must say. Don't you know who I want to be?
Oh, I like that. I might use that. But I mean, you have had these wonderful, wonderful lead roles. And I think your first sort of major, I mean, Tech War was certainly your first big role, but your first like major series lead came in the CTV show, The City, where you played the lead role of Catherine Strachan. So did you feel a sense of pressure having gone from, I mean, you were a lead, but this was something on a different level, like you were probably number one on the call sheet, I imagine. So leading the show.
Yeah, I did. Actually, what was interesting on that show too is the first season I wasn't number one, and then the second season they that character was written out and I became number one. And that was interesting too, watching how differently you were treated from number two to number one. I mean, I find that so interesting, and I find it like we all do it. It's just human nature. People do it. People I love and respect so much. I notice how they just treated me a little bit different, and I thought, oh, why didn't I? Oh, that's interesting. That's so interesting, and especially people like to me. I used to get really frustrated with it because I thought, aren't we all aware of what we're doing? Because that's our job as actors to be aware of our motivations and be. But we're not. We're still fallible humans that are trying to find. Exactly. But I love that show. I was very proud to be a part of that show. I felt a great pressure. I felt a great excitement. I felt a great responsibility, which was stressful. I mean, I think I was saying to you earlier too, that's one of the joys of this when I'm having a hard time now with not having enough to do. I'm like, okay, there's always a light side to everything. So the light side is I've got no stress either. I don't have to worry about the show is not going to make or break on me. If it goes 10 years, it's not because of my work. If it's canceled next year, it's not because of my work. Which, if that's true or not, if you're number one or number two, I don't think that's because it's still a collaborative. It's still a team no matter what. It's the writers, it's the director, it's the crew, it's the lighting, it's always a team.
Yeah.
But you do feel a pressure when you are one or two. I think you do.
Yeah.
Feel that. But I had great fun on that show. I loved it. And it was very Toronto. So I felt very sort of, Canadian and proud of, we were shooting a show that we weren't pretending to be in America. And that's Canada's insecurity. We're always like, we could be British or we could be American. We could be like a cool sort of, but it's nice when we go, no, we're just Canadian.
Yeah. And you won a Gemini Award for your performance in that show. How was that experienced? How do you feel about awards and prizes? Is it quite nice, or is it like, nah, I don't like it?
Gosh, I just feel it's so funny. The appointment that I had before this, I have this every Wednesday. I have this 2-hour writing workshop that I do with this group of extraordinary women. And I love it. Whenever I'm not filming, I'm a part of this group. They're amazing. But there's something, so this is connected. There's something about it that we use it to hone our writing and to share writing. But they're also, because it's such a safe group, we sort of use it as therapy too. So I feel like that hasn't come off me yet. So I don't know how to answer this question without complete honesty. And I don't know if the complete honesty is in my best service. So that's
then don't. I don't want to put you in any kind of, you don't have to answer it. I think it's the only reason I ask, because I spend my life, I mean, I've never won a prize for anything. Nothing. I've been nominated, I think, probably 4 times in my life. And never won anything. And the one time I thought I had a real shot was, I was really surprised at how absolutely devastated I was. I mean, I was fine at the night. I was like, it's great. And great. And there was all that, that the person who won did deserve it, and they did. But I got home and I was completely like inconsolable. I was like, why is it gonna be me? And I still, it's something I grapple with. And again, it's kind of connected to the work we do. Like, I have never been number 1 or number 2 on a call sheet ever. I'm like, I want to try and get up there so that I can try. And I have days where I just think, oh my God, I'm just useless. That's why I'm never going to move forward. But of course, that's not true, because other people come to me and go, oh my God, you've done all these amazing different things.
You've got the career that somebody else wants.
Exactly. So I think it swings and roundabouts, and one day we'll have the conversation.
Well, I mean, I will say quickly that I do believe, I think it's so subjective, right? Art is subjective. And I've always said, it's a really good feeling to be nominated amongst your peers. I think winning is usually political, because it is so subjective. You can't say that is the best of. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. It was the best of for what? For that group of people that are deciding the day. I mean, I've seen a show one day that I loved, the next day I hated it. The mood I'm in, it's so subjective.
Exactly.
So I think there is something, without a doubt. I had more joy being nominated than I did winning, because then I do the same thing in my head when you win and go, oh, maybe they made the mistake. Maybe who's thinking it wasn't right. Like I immediately go to the negative of, I don't deserve this somehow. Whereas if you're just in a group of people that are being celebrated, that feels really nice to go, oh, here, there's like 5 people that they're saying these 5 did something really special last year. And that felt more honest to me and more, had more value to me than the actual winning. And then to try to remember who to thank. And I did. I had people that were mad at me. I had people mad at me because I didn't thank them. I didn't write a thank you acceptance speech. I didn't assume I was going to win. So I just got up there and like, ugh, fuck, what was their name? Oh shit, and I was so nervous, and people were actually mad at me.
Yeah.
So
it's very
be lucky.
difficult.
Nominated is great. Winning,
exactly. At least you go, and then you go to the party and you get all the nice things, and good answer, excellent answer. So you carried on working, lots of classy projects on the way, and in the interim, you did a great show, the Canada People's History, which was really fascinating.
Oh God, yeah, I remember that. That was fun.
And then you get a call from a certain sci-fi show. So tell us a little bit about how Dr. Elizabeth Weir in Stargate Atlantis came your way.
Well, I had just moved to Los Angeles, and I was actually planning to move to New York City. I will get there. I always have segue stories. I was moving to New York City because I love theater. Like, why go to LA? But I was dating a dude from LA. So I thought, fun, let's do a road trip. Let's go to LA and I'll hang out with you for a month. And then I'll go to my apartment waiting for me in New York. And so excited to try New York. So excited for the theater scene there. I got to LA at about 4 a.m. on Sunday, September 9th, 2001. There was a little earthquake that afternoon. So I'm like, I'm not hanging out for the month. I've never felt the earth move beneath my feet. This is fucked up.
Yeah.
I'll go at the end of the week. And then Tuesday, 9/11 happened. So New York was no longer a place. So my introduction to being in America was strange. All of a sudden it was, about war and us and them and American flags. And my little Welsh Canadian heart was like, what is all this?
What?
I didn't get it. So my first 9 months there, everything had shut down. The business shut down. There was no auditions. Like, everything was very strange place. And I didn't quite know what was happening after I was there for about a year, and I didn't even have an agent yet. I just won this award in Canada. I had a series in Canada. Didn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything in the States. They're like, what, a Canadian award? What is that? A hockey stick? Like, it didn't mean anything to them. So it took about a year, and then my old agent who I'd left called and said, there's this little audition, and do you want to go and do it? And I did it, and it was for this show called Stargate, and they called me back the next week. And I'd heard of Stargate, but I'd not seen it. They called me back the following week. I went to do that. Then within a week's time, I got a call saying you're being hired, and then they negotiated a contract. So within a matter of 3 weeks, I had read the first script, and then I was driving up to Vancouver. So it happened very, very quickly. And I was thrilled. I was excited. I had a little bit of, it's another sci-fi. That's so weird. Why do I get sci-fi? It's not my thing. I don't quite get it, but I've not worked for a year and a half, and life is strange, and I'm really grateful. And and I started them quickly. And I said, can you guys just send me? They sent me like box sets of SG-1, and I'm trying to watch those. Trying to understand the world as quickly as I can. But it all happened so quickly. You didn't even have time to figure it out. And then I get up to Vancouver, and we were shooting. I was shooting SG-1 and the pilot of Atlantis at the same time.
Yeah. How was that?
It was a learning curve. It was a huge learning curve. But I feel very grateful. I always talk about that too, because we had, like, on our set, all these newbies that were desperately trying to get it right and trying to prove that they made the right call in casting us. And then you had the other set where they're like, oh, whatever, showing up drunk, farting, they've been doing 8 seasons.
The boys,
going, the boys. How long were you on it? How much?
I was in and out. I basically was in the very first season. I had a nice guest starring role all about Hathor, this evil Egyptian goddess.
Oh, beautiful.
And then I was in the season. Oh, thank you. I don't know. But basically, and then I was in the season finale and the kind of opening bit. And originally they were like, oh, we have this idea that we're going to make her almost like a bee, like a queen bee. And she's got this hive of loads of people, which they ended up doing with my beloved Cliff Simon. They kind of did a similar thing where he had multiple bars. So I don't know. I mean, years later, I heard that, I know it's the writers hated the episode, and I think Brad hated the episode. So I was like, well, that's probably why I was never asked back. But I am astounded still that people, for some reason, that character seemed to resonate. And I am deeply, deeply grateful because I, like you, was not really into sci-fi particularly. And then somehow kind of doing this show for the last year and a half and having learned so much about fellow actors and particularly actors who've worked in sci-fi, I have learned so much and discovered it is truly the best fandom in the world. In the world.
Extraordinary. It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
And I think it was the fandom that made me understand and open my eyes to appreciate sci-fi. I don't think I even started to until I started doing conventions and started having dialogue with the fans, and then listened to their perceptions of it and put two and two together. And it just started layering. I went, oh God, this is really beautiful. And also the fandom and the convention world made me, because you've come from theater too, I went, oh, this is the bridge that I miss in television.
Exactly.
Here's the bridge.
Yeah.
Which is so important.
Absolutely. So I think it's quite interesting that you didn't have a lot of time to prepare. And I wonder if actually, ultimately, that's quite a good thing. You kind of jump in, bite off more than you can chew and then chew like hell, kind of figure it out on the go. But would you say, was there something like one solitary thing that really, that you connected to with Weir? What was the thing that you connected to most?
Oh, I love her. I mean, I really do. There's not many characters that I played that I miss. And I do miss her. I really do miss her. I think I feel very grateful that she resonated with so many people. And I also kind of understand why she did. She was a good earthling. She was a good human. She was trying to, she was curious. She never lost curiosity, and she never lost belief in humanity. And I think those two things are two things that I strive for in my life. I fail daily with both of them, but they're two things that I'm conscious of are really valuable, fabulous coats to wear in life, even when you're dealing with storms. If you look at them through those perspectives and that lens, you're going to get something out of it, and you're going to be able to bear the storm no matter what it is. And I think she wore those two very comfortably and very strongly, and that's what I loved about her. Those are two things I loved about her.
I agree. Like watching several episodes and kind of catching up in all the research that I was doing for this, it's her humanity and her compassion are the two things that you just really, but it's also huge credit to you, Torri, because she never becomes saccharine. It never becomes, what's the word I'm looking for? Twee. It's so truthful and so genuinely, like, I was like, yeah, I want her in my corner.
It's so and I think they wrote her well. I liked how they wrote her, and they were good with women. That group of boys up there, of which there wasn't a woman writer, which always sort of irked me a bit. And I love, and Joseph and I still see each other because I worked with him on Dark Matter. We're sort of in each other's DMs all the time. I have so much time and love for him. So I've said this to him. Why weren't there any women up there on that floor? But they wrote women well. They wrote some strong, intelligent, interesting, complicated, layered women. And
they did.
Yeah. Kudos to them.
But can we just talk about costumes for a minute?
The fucking red shirt. I should have known then. If I'd known sci-fi, I would have maybe fought against the red shirt that very first episode.
Well, listen, my costume was equally horrendous, so uncomfortable, a nightmare to wear. But how did you feel about your costume? I know you didn't like it. And I saw, sorry, go ahead.
No. I was going to say it was comfortable. I love that. It was super comfortable. It was such a joy to not have to wear high heels and not have to wear padded. No, I did still have to wear padded bras, which makes me laugh. Why did she have to have bigger boobs than mine? Why? I don't know. Silhouettes, I guess. But it was really nice to be comfortable. But the colors didn't do a lot for me. The shape didn't do a lot for me. But there was kind of, I actually, to be honest, I didn't mind all that. I was a bit bummed out when I then was, no longer doing the show. And I came back, you guys are all in sexy black now. How come I couldn't be a part of the sexy black?
Yeah. And also I loved, you said somewhere in an interview that it reminded you of Galaxy Quest. And ever since, from the moment I read that, I was like, oh my God, now I can't unsee it.
So true, right?
So funny.
I remember in Outer Limits, I did a show. In the Outer Limits episode I was in this purple outfit. I felt like a Teletubby. I couldn't get that out of my head. The entire week, I was in this one same outfit, and I was just this fucking Teletubby.
Yeah, we don't always. There are sometimes big downsides to the costumes and things like that. But what I love about this as well, when you're looking at someone's body of work, there's always like little hidden gems and a surprise in the mix. And for me, the absolute kind of sock me in the gut episode was The Real World. I mean, it's just great. Character driven, not particularly sci-fi-esque in the beginning. And I thought your work in it was incredible. Do you have any, what was your memory of it?
Oh, that's very sweet. I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, for me, it was funny because I was so separate from the team. So as an actor, I would get jealous going, I want to be working. I was always acting on my own, right? Because they were somewhere and I was acting to them through the ethers or through the computer. So for me, when I got sort of, every character gets their sort of character-centric episode, I went, but I'm actually on my own again. Like I'm by myself in a padded room. Like, give me people to act with. So that was a bit frustrating, but I loved the concept of it. I thought it was beautiful. I thought like it was sort of that removing the fourth wall idea of what if sci-fi was real? What if this was real? And so it was very joyful. It was a joyful, and I got to do some stuff with RDA, which is lovely because he's just
and you guys have great chemistry, and exactly that cheeky and naughty. Is that something you enjoy on a set?
Oh, very much, very much. Yeah. Keeping it light and and connecting with each other and having that giggle. I think it's really important, and it shows up on screen. I think the more you have that naturally.
Yeah, I agree. Did you guys in SGA, did anybody know each other from before, or did you all meet for the first time in the shoot?
All met for the first time. I met Joe and Rachel at the callbacks in LA. And then David and I had a lot of people in similar circles, but I don't think we had actually crossed paths. So everybody met first day, all these little newbies. We were all so sort of fresh-eyed and eager. Wanting to do well.
When it did do well, thankfully. However, your departure from the show came as a massive shock to the fans. And I have to tell you that even now, there are reams of websites out there still expressing their rage, and particularly at how the whole situation was handled at the time. How did you feel about that? Or how do you feel now as time eased it a bit?
Well, it's funny because when the job was offered, we all had to sign 5-year contracts. I begged with my agent, just give me a 3-year. I don't want to do I don't want to do a series. Like the whole point of, I was at I just moved to LA. Like I want freedom. I want to do film and theater. Like, I was still being snobby. I was still having this idea of how do you get to the point in our business that you have control and choices? And to me, the only way to do that is through feature film. Like at that point, that was the route. That was the only way. So the idea of signing off to a series, sci-fi, that shot in Canada, I just left Canada. I want to see if I can knock on a door in LA. So I wasn't, I was grateful for it, but I thought, don't tie me down. So I begged for a 3-year. They couldn't get me one. They said, no, you got to do a 5-year. So in retrospect, it's very funny. I did 3 years and I went, that's what I asked the universe for. And I find that interesting. I also was feeling they weren't writing for her. So I was feeling guilty. I was numbered. I was feeling I'm not really a part of the team because they're all doing their thing. I'm acting by myself. It's harder to write stuff for this person who's by herself in the, on the spaceship when everybody else is on the planets doing the adventures.
Yeah.
So there was some creative frustration I was having. And I understood too, as far as budgeting going, it doesn't make sense for them to be paying me what they pay me. And I'm working 1 day a week because they could just, bottleneck all my stuff into one thing. So in retrospect, I wish I had sucked it up a bit more and gone, no, I want to be there for the whole thing. I want her to be a part of the whole thing. Like that was, it was an important part of my life. And you kind of feel like you left the party too early. I didn't have the choice though. Like I was surprised with how it happened. And I was sort of saddened with how it happened because you do always want to think that you have more you're more valuable. Like, you
Yeah.
won't miss me. You won't
Yes,
miss me on here.
exactly.
So, there's personal ego stuff for sure around it, but I understood it creatively, and I understood it. And there was, again, benefits for me to not be there. I went, well, this is what I wanted, was 3 years. So
Mhm.
don't complain too much. When they asked me back the season 4, I went, sure. And I went and did 1 or 2 episodes, I think, season 4. I don't remember now. And then when they asked me back season 5, at that point, I kind of felt, because I was having a relationship with the fans, and I kind of felt
Yeah.
they were getting pissed off with how she was being used. They were getting, I
Mhm.
had a lot of people letting me know, like, she's just floating around. Like, what is, and so I kind of felt I had to stand up for Weir based on that. And I said to them, can you let me know if you have an arc for her, what her story is going to be? Or is she going to just sort of drop in and fly out
Yeah.
willy-nilly at your storyline's convenience without honoring the character herself? And they couldn't promise me any of that. They didn't know. So I said,
Mhm.
okay, I don't think I want to come back like that. I don't want to be a yo-yo. And
Yeah.
I sometimes have regrets about that, because it would be nice to have been her voice from the, not the beginning, from this almost beginning to
Yeah.
the end. Um, but then there's also, that's the beauty of Weir. She was played by a lot of different people. She is the human. She is the everyman. So,
Yes. Although I think looking at all the stuff I read, there is only one Weir in everyone's hearts, and that is
aw.
you.
Well, I got to do it for the longest, and I'm very grateful for that, because I do like
Yeah.
her. I do like her, and that's nice to feel about a character, and it's nice to look back and think, and just, yeah, I just have nothing but good warm fuzzy feelings about her.
Yeah. I have to ask, if you were, because now that Amazon have bought the franchise, would you entertain coming back to the show if that was an option?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I think it's really hard, yeah, absolutely. I mean, but to be honest, even if I didn't love her so much at this point, to be honest, right, as an actress in my age range in this
Yeah.
world, it would be a crazy to think, like, no, I wouldn't be into that. But I would also, because I liked her, I would love to
Hmm.
revisit her. I think and I would love, yeah, would love to see how they would write for her, what they think she's floating around
Yeah.
creating a enlightened culture somewhere. I don't know.
Exactly. She's
Yeah.
created. I mean, I had this wacky dream the other night with Amanda, you, Jacqueline, Terrell, and Kate Hewlett, and I. Well, the six of us were all in a show together. And I was like, I woke up the next day and I was like,
Oh,
oh, that was weird. And then I was like,
fabulous.
actually, that would be great.
That would be
So,
fabulous. Oh my
Joe
gosh.
Malozzi, if you're watching this, let's get on the blower. And actually, Kate and Jacqueline can write, and you can write. There you go.
Gosh.
Amanda can direct. I'm just
Oh my
saying.
gosh. Let's do it. I'm in.
Yeah, we'll be like the
I'm in,
spin-off
girl.
of the spin-off of the spin-off. um, and
Love
you
it.
are. It's quite funny with sci-fi too, because once you sort of get into a family of people, they really are that. And you guys were reunited, or some of the SGA cast were reunited. I think you, David Hewlett, Jules State, and of course Rainbow in State of Sin, which you
Oh,
narrate. Yeah, what a cool project that was.
yeah. And it's fun. I didn't even know anything about that. I just got a call saying, will you do this voiceover? So I didn't even know who was in the show. I just did the voiceover and went home, went, oh, look who's in it. Like, it was,
Yeah,
we never met each other. Yeah, it is neat that. And then the dark matter world, Joseph kept bringing
exactly.
all of us back into that world, which is so lovely. Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's chat about dark matter because I was going to get to it later, but we can get to it now. So definitely a better costume. That's one good thing.
Such a better costume. My entire
uh,
character was that costume. I didn't have to think about her once. They showed me that
yeah,
outfit. I went, I know who she is. I know who she is. It was so
so
great.
that's really interesting. I was going to ask you how you like to work. Do you like to go sort of like from the outside in or inside out for a character or both?
I
With
think
her,
both.
it
I
was
think
clear.
it really depends. It depends on the writing. It depends on the character. It depends on the situation. Um,
Hmm.
it's always surprising and scary if it's just coming from the outside. It takes ages to find it on the inside. That's nerve wracking. Um,
Yeah,
but sometimes that's the way it happens, that you do get there from the outside in. I think I
yeah,
feel more comfortable when I have the internal to latch on, right? Like, what do you feel that, like, when you read something, you go, oh, I know what she worries about at midnight. And then you go,
exactly.
okay, I know her. So now everything
Yeah,
else is just layering.
yeah. And sometimes, even if it's just a phrase, or a
Mm,
word or a memory or something that another character says about them that you suddenly go,
yeah.
Oh, I get it. I know exactly
Um,
what that is.
that's a
Um,
good point. That is true. When somebody else, what other people say about them, that's always a
yeah.
wonderful insight.
So with Dark Matter, were you offered the job or did they make you audition?
I auditioned, baby. I auditioned, and it's funny.
I
I mean,
can't believe that.
it's a very. I mean, I just had the same experience on this job I'm doing right now. I was
Mhm.
number one, a lead on the show that they wrote 2 years ago. Then they asked me
Yes.
to audition for this teeny part. Um, Canada,
What?
we have no star system. Canada, we have no star system unless you're British or American. Then we absolutely honor your star system. But Canadians are
You're
very weird.
Welsh.
I know, Welsh Canadian. Well, listen, no wonder I'm insecure, right? I'm Welsh Canadian. I come from like the two. I've got England and America as my big sort of brothers looking down at me, and I'm
Yeah.
like the sort of poor cousin going, "Please, can I come play?"
Love
Um,
me.
right? So, yeah, I lost my track. Where were we?
I was just saying, but auditioning for Dark Matter. So you had to
Oh yeah,
audition.
and that was a
Um,
hard one. That was an ego. I almost said no because my ego got involved, and they asked, and I read
mhm.
the part. I said, "Oh, really? It's like this 2 scenes in this one episode." And Joseph wrote for me for 3 years, and
Yeah.
really, um, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad in the end I sucked it up. I went, "Oh, fuck it, just do it, just do the audition." I'm thrilled I
Yeah.
did. And also, it was supposed to just be one episode, and then it turned into more episodes, and it turned
Yeah.
into a friendship with Joseph, which I didn't really have during Stargate because I was still there felt to be for me a division between producers, writers, and actors. Like they were far
Yeah.
away. And we were also all younger. The writers were younger as well as the actors. And I think
Yeah.
that's the beauty about getting older. You're a bit more comfortable in your skin. You're a bit more. So Dark Matter allowed me to create a friendship with him, which I really appreciate and I'm really grateful
Yeah.
for. And it was a good lesson, right? Because if I'd said no, if my ego went, no, fuck that, man. You should just offer it to
Yeah.
me. I would have
Yeah.
missed out playing her. And I really like her. She was really fun to play.
Yeah. And
So,
again, another great character with this kind of gravitas that you have. And you sort of seem to strike this great balance between powerful gravitas, but it's never like too much. And I was like, I've watched so much of your work in the last week, and I was just like, God, how does she do that? Like, you never cross into it where it's annoying for us as the viewer, ever, which is quite
whoa.
something, I
I
think.
don't know.
That's quite a
I've
feat.
read some fan stuff. There's a lot of people who hated my weir. there's,
Well, you know, you
there's
can't
some
keep
healthy
everybody happy
criticism.
all the time.
Never
Not the
say
people I've
never.
spoken to.
Oh, never say
Well,
never. Look at this really cheesy shirt I've got going on here. I keep trying to get dressed.
no, I know it's because we've had you in front of your computer for the entire day because I got the time wrong. I fucked it up. Um, so the next project I'd love to chat about is the incredible series This Life, in which you played the lead, and that I presume
Mm,
is for the same company that you're working for now, the same writers.
yeah.
Um, because it was based on a French Canadian series, Nouvelle Adresse,
Oui.
and it deals with a woman who has terminal cancer and is basically preparing herself and her family for her death.
Yeah.
Now, like on paper, it doesn't sound like a laugh a minute. And although it isn't a laugh a minute, there are lots of moments of levity and fun. How did you go about preparing for this absolutely monumental role?
Um, Life is funny, right? How it throws you things and curves and stuff. I'd
Hmm.
actually had an experience about now, about 4 years before I got that part, um, where I had to face my mortality. I was in a hospital for a month and a half, and I had a real,
Oh,
it was a lung infection. It was random. Nobody knows how I got it. There's no, like, it was just one of those random little bubbles that happens in one's life. But it gave me this opportunity to spend a month and a half looking out of a little window, coming to terms with what my mortality was, so, and how I felt about it, and
yeah.
so it was extraordinary to 3 years later, 4 years later, read the script and then to get the part. And it was funny, at the audition, I was auditioning in LA at the time, and there's an actress I know who walked out and she came up to me. She goes, "Oh God, I don't want to get this." She goes, "Can you imagine having to resonate with that every day? Can you imagine?" And she said,
Yeah.
and also I believe that our thoughts can become things. So what if, you
Oh
end
my
up,
God.
like, she had this whole sort of thing about her. And I thought, well, if you think that, then you could also cure it. If you think you can think yourself into cancer, then you can think yourself out of cancer. So that's
Right.
kind of just a strange place to go. But I had a different take on it. To me, I also really believe in Buddhism. I believe in meditation. I believe in those things have been a tool for me in life. And they always talk about meditate on our death daily. Like you should really sit with it daily. And it just makes your life happier. Real, it puts gratitude into place in a really different
Yeah.
place. So because I'd had all these personal dialogues around it with myself the few years before, I was just thrilled. I was thrilled to do a show that all the PR, I was talking about this. I was talking about our mortality and why don't we look at it, and what is it that scares us. And people say the only things that are true in life are death and taxes. That's not true. You can avoid taxes. You can't avoid death. Like
exactly.
you can't. It's the one thing you cannot avoid. The one thing we are all going to do. And yet we are still terrified of it. We're terrified to talk about it. We're terrified to get, I mean, the fear of getting older, living in California, this whole youth culture, that's not about youth. That's about the fear of dying,
Yeah.
And yet that's the thing that it's what makes life rich. If it was not a finite amount of time we had here, it wouldn't be such an extraordinary gift, right? Who would give a shit
Yeah.
about a rose if the petals never fell off? Who would care? It has to be finite for us to find value in it. There has to be dark for us to appreciate light. There has to be sadness for us to appreciate joy. So it was all those huge ideas which were meaning so much to me personally at the time, that it just felt this beautiful smash up. And I love too, because the concept of the show was she was supposed to die, and the show was really supposed to be about how these people dealt with her after, how they dealt with their life after. And so we were all a bit heartbroken that the show didn't continue after. Like that was the one time I wanted to be written out of a show and it to continue for a good 5 years after I was gone, because it was that dialogue that they really wanted to explore. But it was interesting because the same with the French version, as soon as the character died, the show got canceled. So
Interesting.
so I think that our culture did the same thing. They were like, we don't want to deal with it. We don't want to deal with it. We want to romanticize it.
I thought the bits, I didn't see the whole thing, but the bits that I saw, the episodes I saw, the writing is fantastic. And again, those were one of those like absolute serendipitous, wonderful casts where everyone can do the job really well. It's never over milked. And absolutely that. I love that you don't shy away from playing characters who find themselves in these really difficult situations and that they deal with it. And particularly that character, she talks about it openly, just as you have now. And you're absolutely right. We should all talk about it more, because actually death is more about, I think, for the living. It's for the people who get left behind, how they have to cope. The person who passes goes. And so, but it must have been a massively physically draining and mentally draining experience. I can imagine, like when you get to the end of a season, you must have been exhausted.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely, it was a strange place to sit every day, but it was, but I felt it was more enriching than exhausting for myself. I really did. And I think probably just because what I've been going through personally. So it was, it was energizing on that level. And it was such an ensemble. It was such an ensemble piece. So that, I mean, those actors, Rick Roberts, Lauren Lee Smith, oh my gosh, they're all so amazing. Janet Lane Green, like they're just such wonderful actors. And we were all so supportive and kind and present for each other that you never felt like on Stargate, I felt alone because they were all going off and having a fun time. And I'm like, where's everybody? We were all in it together. So that was really helpful too for that. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure it's I hope you are immensely proud of it, because I do think it's a really special show and a special series. And I have to get to the end now. I have to try and find a way to get to the end.
That's sweet. Well, I really appreciate it. I appreciate you watching it. Gosh, you're so good. Look at you. You've done you do a lot of research. So this is your last one of two. This is amazing. I feel so honored to be a part of it.
I'm so delighted to have you. I really am.
And why is it the last one? Because you're busy. You're heading off to do other things now.
Yeah, well, firstly, the world is slowly inching back to, I wouldn't say normal, but we're getting more normal. And it's been, a year and a half that I did have a break, but it does take a lot of time. It's I've got these fantastic people helping with the live show, but the research and that, it is very time consuming. It's a joy to do because I love actors, and it's been so fascinating learning about people's careers and lives, and just really getting to know this incredible group of people and humans. But yeah, my sort of workload is changing. I've got 2 jobs coming up, and so it's just going to get harder. And I think,
Yeah.
we've sort of feels like the logical end. It was originally only just going to be like for a month, and then it just kind
Yeah.
of took off, which I'm
Good for
delighted
you.
about.
Good
So
for
yeah,
you. But I can
thank you.
imagine it's hugely time because this listening to you, yeah, you obviously do a lot of research and that's a
Yeah.
commitment. Bless you.
And I'm really, I end up going down these like rabbit holes because I'm like, oh, why did she say that? And then I want to look up that. How do I find that? So,
Oh, that's me.
but I think that's good because that's people seem to have really resonated with that, or it has resonated with them, I should say, and that's I'm delighted about that. Anyway, back to you. Let's not talk about me.
No, let's talk more about you.
So I love that throughout your career, you've returned to the theatre whenever you can. You've done wonderful Shakespearean work, Mill on the Floss, Edward Albee's Tall Women. Do you have a preferred medium? Do you prefer the theatre, or do you have a love for both?
I used to absolutely prefer the theater.
Yeah.
Now I really have a love for all. I mean, they're all so different. I love radio. I love radio so much. I love voiceover. I love so I really love all of them. I think they all offer they demand a different tool and they offer a different connection. But I definitely used to be, snobby about television and film. And I thought, if you don't do theaters, everything else is about ego. It's not about storytelling. It's not about truly humanity and art. It's about money and fame. And like and now I have a very different, and I recognize too after years that what I learned from television really served me in theater. I learned about having to trust your instincts, not, just got to go. You just got to be willing to drop one idea and pick up a different. If the director goes, no, do it this way. Okay, do it that way. So
yeah,
that was really lovely. But I realized as I'm getting older, I mean, I think now, I never loved curtain calls. I did a one-woman play a few years ago, and that was interesting. That made me go, I love rehearsal. I didn't love being on stage. It was so lonely. I missed the other actors. It was so lonely. I begged the director to cut out the curtain call. I said, I feel like a complete asshole standing by myself, bowing. I just felt this is not why I'm doing it. This is not what I didn't. So I feel more uncomfortable with that process, weirdly, in my life journey. Yeah, I think they all have their gifts, right? They all have their gifts. For me though, I want to do the research. I want to be sitting in a room and doing the research and doing rehearsals, and I want to and then just go to the pub and talk about it after.
Yeah, completely. It's so funny because I spent years threatening to do a one-person show, and finally in 2019, a friend of mine who's a brilliant writer wrote a piece kind of for me. And it's a one-person show about a woman who's on a cruise ship, and she's basically run away from her life with originally had 9 songs. We ended up only using 5. So 5 songs and this thing. And I was so, apart from being terrified, exactly that. It was the getting ready in the dressing room. I was like, God, I feel really lonely. And when you're having those moments of like, oh my God, what am I doing? I don't know if I can do this. I really don't. How will I remember it all? What if I forget this? There's no one to go, of course you will. Well, I'll be there. We'll come in.
I got you.
You'll be fine. Yeah. And that surprised me because I'd spent so many years fixated on doing a one-person show. And actually, I didn't. I wish we'd had a longer run. It was a very short run because it was more like a little test thing. And perhaps a longer run would have ironed all that out. But it's so interesting because I read when you talked about your experience that you found it quite lonely, and it was mine too.
Oh God. And that same thing every single night, I all of a sudden had all those dreams that you hear about, actors have their whole life but forgetting their lines. I had that dream every single night that I literally would have to turn to the audience and just finally turn to them and say, just go home. It's not going to come back. Just go home. I'm so sorry. There's nothing happening here. And I'd have to pee like 35 times in the 5 minutes. Like it was just
it was pee.
So stressful. Not just right. It's all coming out. So stressful, so lonely. I mean, I think you're right though. I think if you'd had a chance to go for a long time, probably what would have happened is you start getting to a place that the audience becomes your camaraderie, but
Yes.
because for me, it was just the fear of, if I drop a line, how am I going to get it back? There isn't another actor that can jab me into it, can pick up the slack, that can, and what if you jump 20 pages? How do you feel that? Oh my God, that fear. So imagine if you did it so often that fear kind of went away, you know the script so well, then probably the audience would become the other character and you'd find a different, but I don't know, maybe not though. Again, maybe that's more for like comedy or for, maybe. This was so interesting, this play too. I remember when I first read it, the director sent it to me, this wonderful young woman. She wanted me to do it and she sent it to me and I'm reading it going, I don't care about this story. It sounds like a white woman's problem. Like I'm just not, it doesn't have the weight to it. It sounds very indulgent, and it wasn't until the last 5 pages that I went, oh my God, and I started weeping. So as a performer, I had to deal with that I was aware the audience was probably getting pissed off with me. Right. And you didn't know if you had them on your side until the last 5 minutes. And then I'd hear somebody cry and I'd go, okay, I've at least got somebody. I've got one, and that's all that matters. There's one person that's there, but you didn't know for the first 70 minutes. You didn't know until you got to the 80th minute if they were just bored and found you indulgent. Whereas if you're doing, I think, comedy, so you're hearing their voices, you're hearing the audience, so then that becomes more of a dialogue. Maybe then you wouldn't feel quite as alone. Maybe.
Yeah. No, I agree, 100%. We'll have to do it again and give it a go. We'll do a double bill.
Suffer through it for 6 months and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh my God. And then if it doesn't, you're like, oh, we just suffered for 6 months for no reason.
Exactly. I love that you switched things up again, though, when you worked on the fantastic web series on YouTube called Inhuman Condition.
Oh, did you see it?
Now, I've seen lots of it. It's really interesting. So,
writer, man, he was like 19 years old when he wrote that shit. That guy is so smart, so open, so curious. Yeah, super talented.
Amazing.
RJ
And
Lackey.
how was this your first experience working on a web series?
Yeah. And it was terrifying. I just come off This Life. I was actually in rehearsals for a play, and then we were shooting that, and we were doing, I'm not kidding you, like 50 pages a day. My character was in, I think, 90% of it. She was like, so I was like, at the end of the day, I was in a fetal position, having brain synapses, just going, I can't do it. Like I lost it. But because of it too, the pacing was so fast. We would just get in, get out, like shoot the whole thing. I think we shot it all in 2 weeks, maybe. I'm not sure. Really fast though. It was so exciting. It was just like, drop and run. And everybody, like the director had to figure it out. If there was a scene that we couldn't get the words just because we'd already memorized 30 pages and our brain was at saturation point, that we'd have to find. So, because you shoot a lot of it in one takes or in one camera stuff. So we'd have to find a way to like look at it. So I immediately, my character definitely has a thing. She's got this for the script there. Okay. A lot of that stuff was having to happen. It was fun because no money. We were all just doing it for love and fun. So it was that brings a good energy, I think, too, because people aren't there. They're all there for the same reason. No one's there for a paycheck or for fame.
And you would never know that it doesn't have lots of money because the production value is fantastic.
The director did an extraordinary job. The set people, we shot it on this teeny little space that was not set up to be all of them were remarkable. This young group of people working with Smoke Bomb, which is a part of Shaftesbury Films in Canada. And that's one of my favorite projects to think about. I just think they did such a great job. Yeah.
Really great. And the whole series is available on YouTube for anyone who hasn't seen it. I really highly recommend it because it's also really, sci-fi
concept.
Great concept. So we won't give it away, but do go and have a look if you haven't seen it, guys.
Oh, cool. Thank you for watching that. That's so cool.
No, it's great. And, really, again, strong, lovely. She's a doctor of sorts. And really, really excellent series. I highly recommend it and enjoyed it very much. Cool. I wanted to say, or chat a bit more about this. I read somewhere and I wanted to like reach into the screen and hug you because we talked a lot about age this evening. And I mean, it's common knowledge that there just aren't that many roles available for women over 40, basically. And I loved that you were very open about you got to a period in your life where there was less work. And you had that moment of like, oh God, do I go down the old, do I do that and end up looking like someone I don't know? And you chose not to. And I just think that's great. Do you, you're like, no, I'm not so sure.
I'm not so sure. A little bit.
No, I think it is because I think that again, it's something that we need to talk about a lot more. There was Kate Winslet's just done a fantastic series called Mayor of Easttown.
I
It's
just watched
brilliant.
it.
Okay,
Oh, she's so good. Yeah.
she's so good. And
Yeah.
there was an article talking, praising her for her brave performance. And she
Yeah.
was like, fuck brave. This is what a middle-aged woman looks like. We have
Yeah.
wrinkles. And I just think the more, if actors, actresses particularly, were able to be more open about it, I think it would be different. And God, it does not seem to have affected your career at all. Like you don't
Well,
seem to have slowed down at all.
I mean, it's funny
Well,
because I did after I was sick. I had about 4 years. I wasn't working at all. I have all these scars when I was sick because I had. So I sort of laughed. My joke was when I left the hospital, I thought, okay, I'm 43 years old. I can now. I'm covered in scars, so I can basically play a pirate or a rape victim. I don't mean to be uncool. Too old for rape victims. No, I don't even mean that as a politically incorrect. Like it's wrong on every level, but it's truth. It's all truth. It went, oh fuck. Like who am I gonna? What am I gonna do now? Like who? Holy crap. So yeah, I find it amazing that, cut to 4 years later, I started working and I haven't stopped the last few years.
yeah,
I'll probably stop next year and I probably won't work for another 10 years. Like, we have to be okay with that because that's the industry that we chose. And we knew that's the reality of it. I am surprised that I've worked so much, but I also, and it's hard though too, because see myself on screen and it's hard. It's hard to see
oh,
yourself
it's
on
hard.
screen, right? Like it's hard to, I remember my grandmother saying it was hard to walk by a mirror. I'm like, God, my entire career is having to look at a mirror, like having to look, how am I,
Yeah,
and it's hard. I have wobbles, I have meltdowns. I have, oh my God, I must look so awful. Maybe is that why they're writing me out? Like lighting is not friendly. You add makeup, which you have to wear for television. You look even,
yeah.
for me, I look even older with makeup. So yeah, it's, and I still have moments. There's some dialogue going on the show I'm doing right now with one of the hair and makeup people going, there's this really great doctor, and maybe you do this thing. And I do go,
No.
maybe I should, I don't know. As long as, if I do it at any point, it has to be because I want to do it, because I'm
Yeah,
ready to do it. I can't do it because I feel, because then I'll be resentful if I do it because they tell me to.
exactly.
Um, so yeah, it's complicated though, and I
Yeah,
understand. I understand why people do. I mean, I'm not against it. It's just about what's right for you. And I think because I did so much eyebrow acting too, I think I was worried like I wouldn't be able to. And that I remember one of the conventions, this one
exactly.
woman was saying, "Do you know you raised your right eyebrow 42 times?" I'm like, no. How the hell did you count that? But I thought, yeah, like, will I? Yeah, I don't know. But I'm not hard and fast on that. I mean, I think. I hate that our society puts that pressure. I hate that you can still be a sex symbol and a 75-year-old man, and that you're a 45-year-old woman and you have to apologize for getting
Yeah,
older. I hate that. And I think we are moving out of it. And I think there are younger directors that are coming up that actually want to see our faces move. And I think that there's going to be, I don't know. I think it might balance out. I'm not sure. But also, who knows
I
what's going to
think
happen with
so.
science? Like in 5 years, you might be able to, if somebody said you can take this pill and you're just going to get instant collagen all over your body, I would take
Yeah.
that fucking pill. I'm
Oh,
sorry. I probably
same.
would though, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, please. Yes,
Yes.
please. Can we get rid of
Yes,
that? Come
exactly.
on. Yeah.
But well, you can always go the Diane Keaton route. Lots of roll neck jumpers.
Right. I do a lot of scarves. I do a lot of scarves. But it
But
was
I
funny actually
mean,
when I had my scars. I did go for scar revision because this one was like a full-on Frankenstein. And after they fixed it, I missed it. So that's something I'm aware of. I missed it. I went, oh
yeah,
fuck, that was my story. That was a story. And
your
I feel
badge
I've
of
just tried to
honor.
hide. Yeah, it's like bark in a tree. I've earned that, man. I
Yeah.
earned that. So I wonder that if I would, however much I'm surprised at my age, I might miss it. if I amended it. I don't know.
And also it's an interesting thing because I look now at younger people and you think, oh God, it is really wasted on the young. But
Oh my
then a friend
gosh.
of mine who's in her 60s was like, honey, you better enjoy your 50s, kiddo, because like it's just
Exactly.
literally you're never going to be as young as you are today. And I was like, it's so true.
It's so true.
It's
When
so
I was in my
true.
20s, I didn't feel I was attractive. I was always,
Oh, same.
comparing
Yeah.
myself to everybody else, going, oh, I'm to this, I'm to that, I'm not this, I'm not that. It is amazing, right? You look back and you go, and my friend of mine said the same thing to what your friend is saying. She said, whenever she'd hear me complain, she goes, no, in 10 years, you're going to look at a picture of yourself now and go, what the fuck is wrong with me? I looked great. I was fine. So it is just getting back into the moment and being okay with where we're at. But
yeah.
God damn, it's hard.
But girl, you still got it going on because one of your latest projects, Family Seductions, a little mother-daughter, you get to snog a younger guy. So I'm having none of that.
Oh my God, that's funny. That's
I
so funny.
love
You know about that. I had so much fun though. They're all lovely people, but I kind of, to be honest, was a bit surprised at the casting of that. And I fought with my agent. I said, the way this is cast, because I think it was written by a woman, that script.
Right.
And I think the way it was written, it should have been, the daughter is 20, the mother is 40, the dude is 30. So it could go either way. The way it ended up be casting was me, much older than 40, the daughter 20, and the dude was like 27. So all of a sudden, I struggled with it because I said, I feel now it's kind of, I'm worried and hopeful that it doesn't come out that she's an idiot. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The older woman
Yeah.
not understanding her place in
Right.
the world. And if that's how it comes across because of the casting, there's a little bit of misogynist, ageist thing with that.
Yeah.
And the director is delightful. I love him so much. I know that wouldn't be his meaning, but I think that just because they're both two very good actors and beautiful people, I don't know if that was thought through in the casting. And that was the thing that I questioned. I said, I don't know if and I said to my agent, I don't think I should do this. It should be somebody 10 years younger than me. So did you see how it looks? I haven't seen any of it, so I have no idea. If I look like their grandmother, then I am concerned that there's an ageist message. If I
do not look like
the
the grandmother. Well, I've only seen a trailer for it. I just saw a trailer for it.
Really? There's a trailer out there. Okay.
The trailer is on the company the film company who made its website somewhere. If I find it, I'll send it to you. But not at all. No, not at all.
No.
And I just love that. I was like,
oh, that's cool then. Thank you. It was great. That was the one that I was shooting in Hamilton where I went by the hotel I was born in for the first time since I was born.
The hotel, the hospital.
The hospital.
Or was it a hotel?
I still do that. I still refer to, when I was sick, I was in a hospital in Paris. I still refer to it as the hotel. I was on morphine for a month and a half, but whenever I talk about it, I say the hotel.
I love that. Maybe it was a hotel in your morphine-addled brain.
Well, I was being taken care of, right? I was being taken care of. They were changing my sheets. They were bringing me food. It was kind of hotel-y.
Hotel, yeah. Speaking of hotel versus hospital, your latest show is definitely not like a hotel. What a terrific series, Transplant. And I mean, I know it's just been picked up by NBC and for a second season. Are you guys busy shooting the second season now?
We are, yeah. We were supposed to come back. We were supposed to start in June, and then we're supposed to start in November, and then it got pushed again. COVID push until January.
Yeah.
So we've been shooting it since January, and we're going until the end of August. And yeah, hopefully, it's a really lovely, strong cast. I mean, the main character, I believe he's Pakistani actually, but he's playing Syrian. So it's
that whole fantastic.
Play on, isn't he wonderful? They're all wonderful.
So wonderful.
But his eyes, so beautiful.
Those eyelashes.
Those eyelashes.
Come on.
I know.
So good.
And he's a nice young actor. He's a good human. Yeah.
It seems like a really nice team. And of course you've got lovely John Hannah. So how did the role of Claire come your way? Because I know that you'd worked with them before. Again, you said you had to audition.
I had to audition, which was another, ego thing to deal with. But it's funny because since then too, I bumped into a few actors I've worked with who have told me that they refuse to audition for things that because of the same feeling. And I think during our sharing of wine, they recognized, oh, maybe I should have done it because I got the job both times. So, you know, I think there is a, I mean, I think it's different too, because, you know, 30 years ago, there was more work and less actors in a weird way, right? So it was easier to have that kind of star system. But I think Canada, there's not a lot of money here. There's not a lot of production. So they could be picky. They can say, well, let's see if you can do specifically this character. For this one too, they said, well, they always say, well, it's because the network doesn't know you, or it's because this person, so you got to put it out. But it was hard because I knew it was a small part, but it was John Hannah that made me do it. They said, well, you'll be the romantic interest of this man. I'm like, John Hannah, he's a cutie. That'd be fun. He'd be fun to work with. And I thought, well, I'll just do it for a season. Sure, why not? I love Montreal. I love filming in Montreal. I knew I loved this crew. I knew I really enjoyed this production company. It was the showrunner and creator of this show was the main writer of This Life. So I knew I liked his writing, that he was good at what he did. And and as to go back full circle, I've never been a pick and choose kind of position as a career. I am take what you are offered unless it's very offensive. So so it was, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I did the audition, even though I had to battle with my ego a bit, but I'm glad I did it.
Well, I mean, I know for you, it probably feels like a small role, but certainly it doesn't feel like that watching it. She's the backbone of the ER and the trauma surgery room, whatever it's called in a hospital. And your presence is very strong in it. And you have lovely bits. I mean, I'm only 3 episodes in. So, but I'm really loving it.
And she represents the nurses, which means so much to me, because nurses, you know, they're like extras in our world, right? Or the day players in our world. The shows would not exist without them, but they don't get any, you know, they're not doing it for fame or money because they're not getting paid that much and nobody knows their name and their hours are worse than anybody else's hours. But it wouldn't work without them. And nurses especially, and all my cousins in Wales are nurses pretty much. My grandmother was a nurse. So I felt really like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. And originally she wasn't going to be one of the regular characters. And we did like a group cast shot. And I went, a nurse is on the poster. Awesome. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of doctors. No, man. We need the working class need to show up there. So I feel.
Exactly. And my God, they have been our backbone during this pandemic. The nurses and doctors, they really, really have. So, speaking of that, though, there must come a point because, like, the technical jargon and the procedures, I mean, there are a lot of them. And I just wondered, like, how obviously you have people advising you in that, but at some point you have to do it. So, like, how do you handle all the techno babble? Medical techno babble?
Well, two things. I mean, one, we have experience with sci-fi, right? If you've done any sci-fi, you've had to throw out all kinds of, you know, ridiculous language, some of it which is real, some of it's made up, and say it with absolute conviction. David Hewlett knows that better than anybody and did it probably better than anybody. And again, with this one, the doctors have much more than I do, but we have this wonderful, we have 2 nurses. One, Mike is our main guy, but there's a couple other that show up on a regular basis. And we have a couple of doctors that show up, and we do these boot camps whenever we have a couple of big scenes coming up. We'll always rehearse on Saturdays. And it's just the actors, the writer, the doctors, the nurses, and they go through everything with us. They go through, and there's always that dialogue of, well, in real life, this is what would happen. So how do we do it in TV life? And then there's always compromises made too, as far as what the whole choreography of a piece is. But other than that, it's just, say it over and over and over and hope you don't bugger it up. Practice that word backwards that morning brushing your teeth. What was that? What was that? Yeah.
Oh, I know. Some of them I'm just like, oh my God, it's so difficult.
And some days you're great at it, and other days you blow it. Like this one day I had this one word, and it was after coming up a few days that I was kind of feeling like, why aren't they giving me more stuff? And then I had this scene and I kept dropping the word. I went, oh, that's why. I can't get the word out. Oh my God.
So you finished that in August, and then what do you have any plans? Are there any other projects on the horizon?
I'm doing an audition for something right now that would shoot in September in Florida. So I kind of don't even want to do it because I just want to go home right now.
Yeah.
But
you're probably going to get it.
Exactly. If you really don't want it, you'll probably get it. So no, nothing. I mean, as it comes,
Yeah. And
never make a plan.
To go home. Yeah, amen to that, especially as an actor.
Right?
Well, I want to thank you. I'm going to hand over to questions in a minute. So if people have questions, please get them ready. Just to remind everybody, I've had lots. Oh, do you have to
my
go?
God.
You've got
No, but I need
45
to show you guys this.
seconds.
Look,
Oh.
it's two. They're both. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Wow.
Fabulous matches for this. Like these are both
Yes.
in a tie, and we haven't. It's probably amazing. Anyways, let's go to the questions.
Wow. All right. I was just
I'm
going to
just gonna
say,
watch
anyone,
this.
if you haven't, yes, do watch if you want to. If you haven't seen your questions come up, because I got lots and lots of questions emailed in for Torri. If you don't see your specific question, please know it's because there were doubles or people asking the same thing several times. So that's probably why. So I am going to start us off with a question saying, can you tell us a funny story about you and the cast on the set of Atlantis? I would love to hear one.
We hate those questions just because it's such pressure. What's a funny story? David's really good at these.
I know.
Again, and probably Kate's really good at it too. They're good. Funny stories. There was probably all kinds of funny stories. It was a long time ago. I'm an old broad. I don't remember. I mean, Jason always cracked me up. David always cracked me up. I remember we always were desperate to make a musical. We thought that staircase in that set, it was desperate for like a dance number, a can down there. So there's plenty of times between scenes we would start singing the scene and see if we could turn this scene into a musical and do a little can number. That always made me happy.
Claire wants to know, apart from Wales, who do you wish to win the Euros?
Just Wales. Which they'll never win. The fact that they're in is shocking. They've gotten better though. The last 10 years, they've really just showed up. They've gotten so much better. They've really found their footing. They're not like their rugby team, but who would I want to win? I really don't mind. I like, I mean, you know, there's all the top 5 teams who I just enjoy watching. I enjoy watching them play. I enjoy their footwork. I enjoy the excitement of it. I mean, probably England. I probably then automatically go, if it's not Wales, I'm going to root for the UK, you know, get it. Yeah. It's weird how we get so sort of nationalist, right? It's so strange. I don't believe in nationalism. I don't believe in it, but I'm not offended by Welsh nationalism because they've never been an empire. They just have, and they have a sweet little dragon on their flag. So it doesn't feel offensive. American nationalism, I can get a bit frightened of. English nationalism, I can get a bit frightened of, but sorry, I've gone political. I can't just answer.
I think that's fair.
Casually.
So the next question I want to ask you is, does she know if Ordinary Days is on DVD or available to stream anywhere, specifically in Australia?
Ordinary Days. Which one is that? Oh my gosh. That was recent. I don't know. I never know about that. I'm so sorry. I never know what's available or when.
All right. So yeah,
I feel like everything's available online.
It's very difficult as actors because also sometimes when we leave the show, we get
They change the name too.
Yeah, and also you don't have any kind of info, you know, about the show. You finish and that's your job. So
they never send you. They rarely send you an email saying, "Oh, it's going to be airing here or there." It's true. You don't get that.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Somebody's written in saying, huge fan of hers. Elizabeth Weir is my favorite character of the whole franchise. And Joe and Torri have the best chemistry of anyone in that franchise. Atlantis wasn't as good after she left, and I can't even watch anything after season 3 when rewatching the series. What was it like working with each of the cast members on Stargate Atlantis?
They were all great, and they were all so different, and that's what was really interesting too. We were all very, very different personally and politically, but I think we all just sort of got on. Joe and I were funny. I mean, I adore Joe, but we on our first meeting for the callback, we brought up politics, and we are very divergent politically. So I think a bit of that energy showed up in our audition. We're kind of like, and I think that served us. We had a mutual respect for each other, and we liked each other, but we also had a very different attitude to the world, and that created a little spark. I think that created a little, and I think it really served both Shepard and Weir and their energy together. But everybody I loved. I mean, I love, you know, Rachel. It was so nice. We just did this little reunion show for a Comic-Con video and just like a Zoom thing. And I hadn't seen all those faces. Joe and Jason weren't there, and Jewel wasn't there either. But everybody else it was just nice seeing them all in one place. My heart just kind of went, oh, I'm like, Hewlett. I love them. They're all great people. Yeah.
Oh, that's a great answer. So I'm going to do two more questions. One is, who are your role models?
My grandmother and Patti Smith.
I was going to say Patti Smith. Now, I think a biopic of Patti Smith should be in your cards. That's what I think.
I would have loved, I mean, that would have been great in my 20s. I would have loved to have done that in my 20s. I'm too old for that now, but I would, yeah, I'd love to see her story told. But she's still out there telling us. Yeah, she could play it though. She's
but she might not be an actress. So, you know, let's manifest that into the universe, because I'd love to see that.
Good.
And then the final question I'm going to ask is, somebody said, I'm sure that you have familiarized yourself, meaning me, with Torri's work before the interview. But how about the other way around? Is Torri familiar with your role on Stargate? And if so, could she imagine herself playing a Goa'uld goddess herself?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm terribly embarrassed to say I have not done that. And I feel so awful and bad. And I'm going to blame my schedule the last 2 weeks, which is why I haven't. But I'm going to now, because it's been such a delight to meet you. And I'm going to go and watch all of your episodes because I think you're fabulous. But no, I'm not even going to lie about it. That was just my truth. No, I couldn't play that. Look at you and look. No, I would not want to be in one of those goddess outfits.
Oh yeah,
maybe in my 20s I would have, but no, not anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't even like it in my 20s.
It's hard, right? It's hard to act powerful when you were dressed like a sex symbol. Unless you have that really innate sense of your own sexual power, most of us feel a bit vulnerable when we are asked to be revealing. And so power too. I mean, I've seen lots of photographs and you just come across so powerful, so strong. And to hold that while you're in that place of vulnerability, I think is astounding. And I don't think I would have had the strength to do that at that age. I don't think I would have found that. I would have never been cast in that. I wouldn't have been able to do, I wouldn't have done it any service, any justice at all.
Well,
so
I don't think you don't need to play a goddess, honey, because you are one.
Yeah, boom.
And thank you so very much for giving us so much of your precious time, particularly as I know you're working really long days. I have loved getting to talk to you more. And I cannot wait till we can actually sit down and have a glass of wine at a convention.
Right? Let's do that. Let's do that. I would love it. I'm starting to get the invites now, so it sounds like they're all starting to happen.
I was just going to say, that was one of the questions, actually. Somebody asked, when will you be back in the UK doing a convention? Do you know?
I don't know. I was just invited to one in Germany in October, I think. And I think somebody said there might be one in Wales. I'm always asking to go to Wales. I've only been invited to Wales once. I'm like, dudes, what's up? So if there's something else around that time, I'll try to do another one because I'm going to make the journey over there. But that's all I know of. I don't even remember what the name of it is yet, but it's October 20th somewhere in Germany. Well, it's very wide.
If you come via London, we're going for a glass of wine, regardless or not, but hopefully I get to see you at a convention too.
I would love that. Such a pleasure. And thank you. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for the work. Thank you for bringing us all together. I just love it. I love what you're doing and I can't wait to see you in real time.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for everything, Torri. What a pleasure this has been. Thank you. Mwah.
Mwah. Bisous, bisous.
Bisous, bisous. À prochaine fois. Well, guys, this is it. We have come to the end of Hathor Hosts. Oh, I feel all verklempt. I have to just say an enormous, enormous thank you to my fantastic producers, Drew and Catherine, who have managed to do seamless work on this show. They are the reason why it looks good. And have you noticed there've been no gremlins since they took over? From the humble beginnings on Instagram, where we were trying to get actors to join in conversations, honestly, to where we are today, this has been such a pleasure. It is also mostly down to you. Thank you for all the artwork, your beautiful posters, Dana, Corinne, for your beautiful theme and the opening credits. I cannot go into everyone's names because we could be here for ages, but for everyone who has done artwork, badges, posters, letters, emails, drawings. I see it all. Your messages on Instagram, on Twitter. Thank you so much. I cannot tell you how much it means to me, and particularly how I feel like we have really reunited as a fandom and as a Stargate family. And that really means so much to me. It also means a lot to me that during a time of really stressful time when Cliff left us, that I felt the fandom was here and really understood what that was all about. So please do keep up with our subscription on Hathor Host, because who knows if there'll be a season 3. You never know. We might still be in a pandemic. Let's hope not. But even if there isn't a pandemic, it'll be a lovely thing to be able to reconnect with all of you. Thank you so much. I'd also like to really finally thank lovely the Gate, David, and Gate World for their incredible support and for also helping reach fans. Please share these interviews with your friends. Tell other people they're on YouTube. Let's spread the Stargate love. And who knows, maybe we'll even see you guys in the new Amazon show. Either way, thank you. Thanks for joining me every week. It has been my great pleasure to get to know you all a bit better and to bring this show to you. Thanks very much, everyone, and goodbye for the last time. Bye. Mwah.